Greetings YouTube and welcome to my latest weapons build. Or I should say accoutrement, because you see I purchased this as a belt buckle. Yes, it was advertised as a belt buckle. That little thingy comes off, and I guess technically if you really wanted to, you could in fact use this as a belt buckle. It is of course a knuckle duster. It's just a cheap one. It's not even solid brass. It's brass colored. It's probably some kind of nickel or something, I don't know. But I didn't own a proper knuckle duster at the time, and I found this one for a good price, so I picked it up. And I've been wanting to make a knuckle duster, or actually a number of them over the years, and I've been hesitant to take off and try it in steel off the bat because that's going to be a lot of work. So I happened upon this piece of 1/2-inch aluminum plate, which is scrap, didn't cost me anything. So I want to use this to make my own. Now the holes are actually too close, so the center hole I've marked there is the same as this one, so the whole thing will move down. Me being me, I'm making this much chunkier than it was originally, and I'm going to make it much pointed at the top. I'll put a slight bevel on the edges. This is not going to be a blade. This is aluminum, but I do want to make it a larger impact point, as well as impact points on either side for both striking that way and that way. And so, unfortunately, the only thing I'm not too worried about cutting, I'm going to cut the thing out first because I have good clamping processes, so I don't need to have the whole thing together, and I want to get the overall shape first. Unfortunately, the only thing I have to cut this with for a 1/2-inch piece of aluminum is going to be my angle grinder, which is very fast, and I'm going to go through at least 2 discs on this thing because I'm just going to chew them up. There's no way I can get around this. It's just going to be nasty. I don't have anything to really cut 1/2-inch plate well. Diablo makes a blade for a standard 7-inch circular saw, but I don't have one of those. They're not cheap, and cutting something this small with a 7-inch circular saw makes me really damn nervous. And I don't believe they make one designed for a 4.5-inch circular saw, which is a much lower RPM. And the blade I have for my circular saw, for my 4.5-inch, is not designed to handle this kind of work. It doesn't have carbide tips or anything. It just isn't going to cut it, literally. So I'm going to have to use abrasive discs and just go through a couple of them, maybe 3, who knows, by the time I'm done. I'm hoping I can get at least these 2 corners sorted, this corner and this one here, up to that spot done, and then after that I will come from here to here. That not only is my desire to make these points, but it also makes my cutting job easier because I can go, that's a straight line, that's a straight line, I'll put these radiuses in later, and then I knock that corner off, and then I come across here last, and that's the last cut I make, and then the whole thing falls free, well, in theory. And then I have, this is a hole that was already here, so I'm going to use that as my center hole for drilling that hole right there. And I have carbide hole saws, which I'll be using on this, which I think should make a pretty short work of this process. We're going to find that out now, aren't we? So first thing I need to do is get my safety gear on. At the moment, all I've got on is my safety shoes, and start whacking off these straight lines, and hopefully it won't be too miserable. Well, that was a miserable slog. I ended up cutting a relief hole, I think that's 3/8 of an inch in diameter, to make my job a little bit easier. And so now I have the rough shape I want. It needs some cleanup, of course, but at the moment I want to get the holes drilled out and sorted. And I'm going to be using a 22mm hole saw, which is over here, because that fits in perfectly. It's the exact width I want. So that'll should make my life a little bit easier. Now I'm going to need to clamp it up and start drilling. And that hole, which is already there, is the same diameter as this, so that should act as a nice little guide right there. And I count myself lucky that I only destroyed 1 disc, so that's not too bad. Again, these are about $1 a piece, but still I don't like to waste things if I don't have to waste things. I am making stuff out of scrap after all. This piece right here is probably big enough that I might be able to use that as a clamping block or something in the future, but this little one, I'm just going to put that in the recycling bin because, well, it's recycling. It's pure aluminum. So, next up, let's start drilling some holes. Alrighty, so all 4 holes are now done, and they are quite comfortable as they are. I will be opening them up into true ovals. But at the next stage, I would like to finish shaping the overall outside edges. So I want to come up to my lines, which at the moment are kind of on the faint side. I can see them fairly clearly. I don't know how well they're going to show up on the camera. Because I had to wipe this thing down repeatedly, and it was covered in oil, which kind of breaks down the marker. But these are the plugs I had created, and this was not fun. This would work well until it got to the end of the teeth. So when the hole got to the depth of the carbide inserts, that's when it just bogged down. And it didn't matter whether I had the spring in there or not. I tried it both ways. I think maybe without the spring, maybe there was a little bit easier on that last hole, but it was still just a real slog to get through those. I don't know if I would have been better off with a conventional drill bit and then try to open it up, but on 3 of these holes, these are already the size of my fingers. This one's a little bit on the tight side for my forefinger on my right hand. But again, I'll be opening up these into ovals before I'm finished. So if I had used a conventional drill, the biggest conventional drill I've got is a 1/2 inch hole, and that is less than a 22 millimeters. So that would have been much tighter, and I would have ended up having to remove a lot more of the holes than I do now. So I may have to open this one up a little bit to the width, but none of these will have to be opened up widthwise. I will just make them oval. I will just remove material on the top and the bottom, and then chamfer the edges. That'll help make this much more comfortable. But before I do that, I want to get the outside edges to this shape I want before I address the finishing parts, which will be putting chamfers on it and finishing up the holes. So I've got my angle grinder set up here and an angle, and I'm just going to start taking material off this thing with just safety glasses, hearing protection, and safety gloves, and just start going off and trying to get using 2 hands to hold the object so that I can get in there and get to that line. And when I'm done, I may do some work here on the bench, tape down some sanding paper so I can try to get a close to a flat edge. Try to get a flat plane. I don't know if I'll do that or not. We'll see how it looks. I could just clamp down a file of some variety and do that too, but having sandpaper gives me a bunch more surface to work with. So let's work on that and see how it goes. Well, folks, there she be, my finished knuckle duster. It's my first try, so be kind to me. I'm sure that Mike is going to be cringing when he sees this thing as my first attempt at a knuckle duster. But it does in fact do what it's supposed to do. Interestingly, because my left hand is slightly smaller than my right hand, it actually fits my left hand better than my right hand. I should have made this distance a little bit bigger. I'll know that better for the next one I build, because I do plan on making more than one of these. The holes aren't perfect, but they're comfortable. Everything's deburred, everything's smooth and comfortable. That's the original surface that was there. I didn't change that. I just kind of polished it up with some little bit of steel wool. There's with the grinds. I decided that the best way to do this, I couldn't get the control I wanted using the angle grinder. So I broke out my biggest I'm not messing around file, and so I used that to create the flats. And then I used my my belt sander over here to do the cleanup on the flat. This is a new 80 grit belt, and then I set this at a roughly 45-degree angles. This thing doesn't go exactly to 45-degree angles. It's a cheap Harbor Freight belt sander, but that's how I got the bevels on the chamfers on the edges, is with this set up like that. As you can see, it worked quite well. As you can see, my floor, it's covered in aluminum. I'm going to get my vacuum out. That's not going to sweep well. But I'm quite happy with it, and I like the diamond shape, because one of the best things to do if somebody's fighting you with knuckle dusters is to get in close. and if you grapple somebody, this is going to make a much better hammer blow than a standard set of knuckle dusters. This set over here, which is blunt. Yes, you still can hit harder there, but I can guarantee you that's going to hurt a hell of a lot more. The holes were a little bit smaller in here, but I wanted them to be the minimum size I could use with my bare hand. I didn't want a lot of slop in there. I wanted to have them feel comfortable, and exactly how delivering the energy the way I wanted it to be done. For my right hand, this is just a smidge too close. My left hand, it works a little bit better, but they do function, and I will hopefully be making a companion piece to this at some point in the future, but made out of steel. And I'm going to have to get a better brush for cleaning these things. Well, the steel won't clog up the files the way aluminum does. That's one of the nice things about steel. Aluminum clogs up your files. I brush these things so many darn times in this process, trying to get that thing, those teeth to keep functioning where they're supposed to. Now, I understand that when you talk about craftsmen and stuff, they're going to tell you that finishing is 90% of the work. But, you know, I've gotten to a point where this thing works, and I'm tired of working on it. And when something ceases to be fun for me, I'm going to stop doing it. It works. It's a post-apocalyptic theme. That's one of the reasons I work in this aesthetic, because I know that I do not have the patience for the degree of finish like even my friend Mike does on his old knuckle dusters. He doesn't make them anymore. The UK has draconianly stupid laws, but yeah, I like this. And don't tell my wife. She'll be very mad at me, but that definitely hits hard. Yeah, she doesn't like when I do things like that. She's afraid I'm going to knock down the building. But I'm not that strong. But there you go, folks. My first knuckle duster. I'm going to call this the Diamond Duster because it's roughly diamond shaped. Tell me what you think. Be kind. Like I said, it's my first one. And I'm happy with it. And that's really, all that matters.